directed by Gabe Torres. We are talking The Windigo, which I'm guessing is an alternate spelling for a Wendigo, and that is what this movie is all about, folks. A Wendigo. So what's the story? Well, it focuses on a small family of Native American descent. We have a mother and her two sort of teenage kids. They're around 17. And they're going to check on their grandmother, who is phoning them up in a panic. And they live in California. The grandmother lives in the kind of the woods in Michigan, I think, or somewhere like that. So they drive up there to kind of do a welfare check ultimately, and it's a little bit confusing about the relationships between these people, because everyone, so both generations, the mother and the two teenagers are both calling her grandmother, and she says like, oh well, our actual grandmother used to call her grandmother, which would infer that she's at least her great grandmother. And okay, so it's a bit like, okay, well, that's a bit unclear about what's going on. But anyway, we find out that there is a kind of a curse that has prevented this grandmother from really dying, hence why she is sort of has this kind of long legacy. And these two teenagers, this brother and sister, end up coming afoul of a small group of meth dealers, and the boy, the male out of the two siblings, goes to the grandmother for help, and they effectively summon this Windigo, who takes vengeance on these meth dealers who have threatened these two siblings, and but she warns that this thing can be uncontrollable and unpredictable, and it's got to be kind of dealt with. But inevitably things go wrong, and this Windigo is out for blood. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss The Windigo. Okay, so this is a lower budget kind of creature feature, but oh boy, I really enjoyed the creature out of this one. It is a man in a suit, but I think I'd much prefer that than a kind of CGI creation. But I have to say, I really enjoyed this creature. I thought it was very well realised. Pretty intimidating looking. I've seen a few sort of Wendigo based movies, and I have to say, by far and away, this was the most impressive kind of construction in regards to a kind of a creature. I thought it was really good, and it looks very, very kind of intimidating, so that was kind of quite fun. I quite enjoyed the kind of the grandmother character and her relationship to the kind of this family, all of whom are a little bit different from one another. The mum has kind of got one foot in the Native American traditions whilst being quite modernised, and the two teenagers, the girl is kind of like a sort of a tomboy and almost looks after the brother whilst he's a bit of a wimp and ends up kind of gets bullied all the time. Hence why he's so keen to kind of get revenge. But I thought the characters were actually kind of quite well kind of realised. If you like movies set in a snowy background, this is one of those. So we have this sort of winter sort of setting. It's set around Christmas. And, you know, obviously I always think that makes for some quite sort of striking visuals. There is some fairly good kind of death scenes in this movie. It's not like a huge body count. But when the Windigo is, particularly I would say the second main victim, it's looks very painful. Let me just kind of say that. And we have a kind of a through line here that connects the grandmother to this kind of creature that does, if you're familiar with Wendigo and the kind of the cannibalism kind of side of things, that is sort of connected there as well. I would say the movie's quite well paced. I was engaged through the movie. It starts out relatively slow, as these things do, but kind of picks up as the kind of the tension gathers and the progression kind of gets on and stuff, and the stakes get higher. So I found myself to be quite engaged in this movie. It's kind of well paced, quite well shot on a technical level, and the story is sort of somewhat easy to follow. It's not a particularly kind of complicated story. There's one or two things I'll point out in regards to the story, but for the most part, I thought it was an uncomplicated story that you can kind of sit and enjoy for sort of just good entertainment value to a degree. What doesn't work in this movie, I mean, this movie is very much an A to B kind of storyline. There's not really much else to it. And ultimately, it makes it a little bit on the predictable side, you might say. I mean, you kind of know when this creature is summoned, inevitably it's going to kind of go wrong, and there's kind of like this young lad's going to regret calling it and things like that. It's very, very predictable in regards to that. However, I would say there are a couple of story elements here that I thought were, as I say, a little bit on the vague side. Like the age of this kind of like this grandmother, and why no one's really kind of called it out. We have the confrontation with this Wendigo and how it concludes. I have to be honest with you, I wasn't really sure what happened. It just kind of ended. I'm sure something was supposed to happen, but the way it was filmed, this is the one bit of the movie where I felt that the filming wasn't particularly good, because I wasn't really quite sure what was supposed to have happened. And I was like, okay, well, it just kind of ended. All right. So there was that. I think I have to say this, to be honest with you, our main character is this sort of teenage boy. And I have to be honest, I didn't think his acting was particularly strong. It's not the worst acting ever, but I would say out of the cast here, he is probably the weakest. And he is the main character with the most screen time, so it's worth pointing out that his acting is a little on the hammy side, I have to say. There's one sequence which has CGI in it, and it is very, very cheap-looking CGI. I would have just cut this sequence out. It is only a very short sequence. Don't let this part of the review kind of dissuade you nonetheless. But yeah, it looks pretty bad. I would have just cut it out, to be honest. Worked around it. And I do think maybe the Wendigo's kind of powers, what it can do, is sort of what the script wanted to do at any one time, to be honest. So, yeah. Overall, it's an uncomplicated, somewhat predictable, but fun and entertaining movie with a cool, kick-ass creature. So, yeah, I mean, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's a perfectly fine, sort of watchable creature feature. It's not going to blow your socks off, but it's fine for an evening's entertainment. 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.